your head coach at Cincinnati, Wes Miller. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. When you come in today's transfer portal, you know, there's always a question mark of who's going to stay, who's going to go. What was the first thing that you wanted to do when you got to Cincinnati?
Well, there was a lot to do when you get the job. We got the job late in the spring. But first off, thank you guys for having me, and really excited to be here, excited to be the head coach at Cincinnati, and excited for this season. But the first thing was to try to get a roster in place. I think there's only 3 or 4 guys that were currently on the roster or not in the transfer portal the day that I arrived. So we had about 30 days before summer school started to try to put together a roster so we could actually get to work on preparing for this year. And that was number one. And the second thing was try to get a staff in place. I've said to a lot of people, those first 30 days, I don't know if I remember them well. It was just one big blur. But I'm proud of the work that we did in a short period of time to put together a competitive team and put together a staff that I'm really proud of.
Let's toss it over to Tom now with some questions from our Zoom.
All right, our first question will be from Jason Stamm of Bearcat Report.
Hey, Coach, you're obviously first year. You've got a lot of you got some returning players. You got a lot of new faces, transfers, everybody coming in. What has that cohesion been like on the team, and how did even going to Indianapolis help in kind of building that cohesion?
Yeah, we're all new, right? The guys that are returning are new to us. We're new to them. We brought in 6 guys through the transfer portal, so it's a group of a ton of new faces throughout the room, players and coaches alike. And so I think one of the biggest challenges we've had from day one is trying to get some familiarity with each other. And you know, I'll say our players have handled it extremely well. They've worked hard this summer to get to know one another, to learn how to play together. But I have really no complaints to this point at trying to create some cohesion. But as you mentioned, we went away last weekend just to get out of town during fall break and spend a little more time together as a team. We've tried to do everything we can to get to know each other better as a group. So it's not just one weekend retreat. It's been from the moment that we got together here for summer school. But it's going to be a challenge. It's going to take a little bit of time to get to know each other better as the year goes on, learn how to play together. But I think the willingness to do that's been really good.
All right, our next question will be from Tim Daniel at 48 Minutes Basketball.
Hey, Coach. My general question was just, you know, like you mentioned, you guys had to bring in a lot of guys pretty quickly. But you managed to get a lot of veterans like Abdul, who played in major conferences, John Newman, who played in major conferences, having a guy like AJ who came with you. How big, and then obviously David coming back for his second year, but doing time at his 2 first couple years at Michigan. How big is for that to have guys who played in major Power 5 conferences to be part of your team as you guys are trying to bring this together for the season?
Yeah, we wanted the experience. I thought obviously the transfer portal when we were recruiting in May was a tool and an opportunity, and we thought we didn't bring in anybody out of high school in that 21 class. We wanted experience. We wanted guys that had college experience, that had won in college, and had played at a really high level. And I think if you look at the way that we recruited, you can see that. We also wanted some youth and some guys that were going to be able to be in our program and help us build day-to-day culture every day. And that's where, A.J. McGinnis, Jared Hensley, guys that I'd already coached for a year at UNC Greensboro made a lot of sense for the long term. But I do think with, Abdul, with Hayden, with John, with Odie, David DeJulius, these are guys that have transferred, have played big minutes in big-time college basketball games. And I think that'll mesh and translate well to the American and mesh with the guys that have already played some big minutes in a pretty big-time league here in the American that are returning for us. So that was strategic when we were recruiting in the spring for sure.
All right, our next question will be from Justin Williams at The Athletic.
Hey, Coach. You have this reputation as a kind of defensive-minded coach. That's not always the easiest thing to sell, players to get excited about. How do you get that investment and buy-in from players with your style of play?
I never thought it was much of a hard sell, Justin. I think it's really simple for us. you know, guarding people and rebounding wins. You know, I don't care what anybody sells in recruiting or anybody in the media. The teams that guard every single possession and play together, and the teams that rebound the ball on both ends, those teams win. Those teams advance in the NCAA tournament and play in the Final Four and win national championships. So we're going to demand those things every single day. We want, you know, young people that have energy to compete and to win. And kids that do that understand that, and the people around them understand that. But I think the other side is we really let guys play offensively. We're going to demand a certain type of approach and mentality on that end of the floor and on some of the little things that we think impact winning possession after possession. But then we're going to give a lot of freedom and let guys play through mistakes and let guys go be themselves offensively and evolve as offensive players. So I've always looked at it as a little bit of a give and take as a coach. We're going to put our foot down on certain aspects of the game and demand that everybody gets to that standard. Then we're going to have a little bit of patience and freedom in other ways. And I found in recruiting and even more so in coaching, I think the kind of players that we want to coach, that really resonates with them, and they have good experiences playing that way and being coached that way.
All right, our next question will come from Brian Hummer at Cincy Slangin' Podcast.
Hi, Wes. You've got a new roster, but an experienced roster. How has that depth at 1 through 13 impacted the competitive spirit of practice?
Yeah, the depth, that's a great question. You know, we've gone through about a week and a half of practice, 2 weeks of practice now, and the one thing that we keep talking about as a staff is our depth. First off, you know, we have to find a way as coaches to utilize that and take advantage of that depth, because that will be a strength on this year's team if we can figure out how to utilize it and get our guys to buy into that. But it's made practice extremely competitive. We've mixed up the teams and split the teams up every single day since we started practice, and every day it's been competitive regardless of how you kind of split guys between two teams. And that's going to make for really competitive practices throughout the year. And I think, you know, iron sharpens iron. I think that's going to allow us to continue to develop and grow and practice every single day as the year goes on. So that's been a really fun part of the first 2 weeks of practice for sure. And I think something that can help our team, you know, day to day throughout the season. And then I think we have to figure out how to utilize that depth when we start playing games.
All right, our next question will come from Chad Brundle at Bearcat Journal.
Coach, you had 10 years built up at Greensboro. How much, as you start back over in Cincinnati, do you look back to that first year at Greensboro to maybe teach you some lessons? And also, how do you not have those experiences keep you up at night knowing you're still in year one?
Well, yeah, I think I've thought about that first year too at Greensboro, you know, daily since those experiences, you know, happened years ago. And I think one thing I learned is let's not do it that way, right? I learned what not to do in those first couple years. And listen, if you'd have asked me my first couple years as a head coach if experience mattered, I'd have said, no, it doesn't matter at all. But now after 10 years of being a head coach, I'd say it really matters. More than anything, I think trial and error and failure has taught me a lot of great lessons. And, you know, every day we're making decisions as head coaches, and we're trying to do the right things to put our team in position to be successful. And of course, I'm always thinking back to the experiences that I've had, the things that have worked, the things that haven't worked. And obviously, you know, going through transition again for the second time, you know, I feel a little bit more prepared for what I'm dealing with, and at least not trying to make the same errors again.
Coach Michael Dahl in the studio. I'm curious to hear, you've got the number 1 and number 2 leading active shot blockers in college basketball, and Abdul Adu and the slim preacher Hayden Koval. And are you going to get a chance to play with those guys together?
You know, we're really thrilled about our rim presence. We knew when we recruited, you know, I coached Hayden last year, and his rim presence is real. I mean, he's 7 foot and has great timing and bothers more shots than he blocks, to be honest. So he just has real presence at the rim. And then Abdul has been one of the best defensive players in the interior in the SEC for the last 3-4 years. So we're really excited about that. But I think what's gotten lost because of their statistics and their previous success, Victor Lochen, who's I guess a redshirt freshman from Russia that was here last year. Boy, he's really got some rim presence that we've seen in practice. Odi Aguama is a really good positional defender and has some length and athleticism. So we really, really do have some rim presence in our front court, and we think that's something that'll help our team be successful defensively. But you ask a really interesting question, and I brought 2 other guys into the fold. We are going to try to play big and try to play those guys together at times. It's going to come down to how much we can cover with both of those guys on the floor when you're playing against, teams playing smaller or playing with a guy at the 4 position that's more like a guard and can really stretch it and shoot it. But we're going to work to see if we can structure our defense in a way that we can do that. And we're trying to get those guys out on the floor, learning how to cover smaller guys, because I do think that we could be really a really good team with 2 big guys on the floor around the basket, rebounding the ball, if we can figure out how to play those guys together at times. So we're working to that, but kind of time will tell type of thing.
Coach Brooke Weisbrod, Roy Williams said that you came closer to reaching your potential than any player he's ever had. How do you continue that same philosophy with your guys? How do you get the most out of them?
Coach is kind. Right? I talked to him last night. He's as kind as can be. But I've always, put that in perspective. He might be saying I didn't have any potential. So, so I always kind of laugh when he says that. But he's been good to me. I think Brooke, your question is, how do we get our team to get as close to our potential as possible? And it's a boring answer, but an answer I really believe in. And it's just coming into work every single day, one day at a time, not focusing on results that we can't control, having dreams for the big picture, but really focusing in on the moment and what we can do today to get better and maximizing today and the opportunity in front of us. And I think if we'll all kind of embrace that type of a growth mindset every single day and live it, I think we have the best chance to reach our potential as a team by the end of the year. And that's the goal every time you take the floor.
Coach, we're about to hear from Jeremiah Davenport. What does he add to your team, not just talent, but also in leadership?
I'll tell y'all, from day one, from the day that I walked on this campus, it has been a thrill to coach and interact with Jeremiah Davenport. We'll talk about his basketball here in a second, but his energy, his charisma, it's infectious. And I think you can see it on the basketball court. I mean, when I was watching tape, when I was interviewing for this job, his energy and passion and the way that he competed just jumped off the screen when I was watching film. But that's how he is every day. I mean, he lifts you up when you're around him. And I believe in being around people that inject energy every day. So I've just been absolutely thrilled about coaching him, interacting with him. His work ethic this summer was really admirable. I think he's improved. And I think people will see that when he takes the floor here this year. Make no mistake about it. We got to tap into his energy as a team, the way that he plays, the way that he competes. We got to make sure we put him in positions to be successful. We do have high expectations for Jeremiah. He's got high expectations for himself. But the best part about Jeremiah is that he puts winning above all else, and I think that's a leadership quality in itself. I think his versatility is going to be important to us this year. He can shoot the ball maybe as well as anybody in our league, and he really worked on his jump shot this summer. He can put it on the bounce against a bigger, slower defender. He can go post and utilize his body against a smaller defender. And I've really challenged him to be the best offensive rebounder at his position in our conference, and he's really embraced that role so far. I've been really excited to coach him, but mainly because he just lifts everybody else around him every day, and he's been a leader in that way every day that I've been here.
Head coach Wes Miller, we're looking forward to watching your first season up in Cincinnati. Appreciate the time.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, guys.
Yep. Mike, I want to start with you. This was a team that a year ago was playing in the finals of the conference tournament. What do they need to do to get back to that?
Well, their balance is going to be something that Coach Miller is going to have to figure out. They are huge up front. Their front court is massive, and not only are they big, but they are very gifted shot blockers. We mentioned they have the number 1, number 2 leading shot blockers in the country. Abdu was SEC Defensive Player of the Year. So this is the team that has a lot of rim protection. Now, what the guards are going to say is, hey, Brooke will I'm just going to take chances, go for steals, and let the big guys clean it up. But with a Wes Miller coach team, if he can get buy-in defensively for the guards, because you've got the great wall around the rim, this is a team that defense is going to take them to the next level. If they can get that commitment, they're going to be just fine.
They return a lot of talent. Mike Saunders, David DeJulius. Where is the ceiling for this team?
What I love about how Jeremiah Davenport's game is a fire to compete. That's how he's described. And I think that kind of energy, when you have somebody and a key guy that's like that, everybody else is going to really absorb that same energy, just like Coach Miller said. And there's no telling what the ceiling is for this Bearcat team, because when you play with that kind of identity and don't put too many expectations on the number of wins, where we have to end up this season, we're going to come in the gym, we're going to go to work every day, we're going to be great defensively, and you're right, Abdullah Adu, woo! He's going to be so good in this conference at blocking shots. I can't wait to see what he's bringing.
Coach was so honest about, hey, when I stepped foot on campus in April, we had 4 guys that were a part of this roster. So that was the first thing I had to do. How impressed are you at who he was able to keep, not only who he was bringing in, but who he was able to keep as well?
Yeah, Davenport was a huge key, but he actually really his maybe number 1 or number 2 priority was keeping Mikey Saunders. I think Coach Wes Miller really feels that Saunders has great potential in the backcourt. He's got that burst of speed, energy, loves to play in transition, get out and run. And those UNCG teams, they run, go, go, go. And so for a player like Mikey Saunders, when you get defensive buy-in from him and you just give him the ball and let him go, that could be kind of the spark plug offensively for the Cincinnati team. I think Mikey Saunders was the huge key coming back. When you talk about recruiting your own players, getting Saunders that's like a 5-star recruit for Coach Wes Miller.
Well, Jeremiah Davenport joining us now via Zoom, averaged nearly 13 points last season. Give us a sense of what it is like now under your new head coach.
It's great vibes, Coach Wes, he's immaculate, great energy, love his players, loves to be out here every day, competing, want to get better with his guys. You could just feel the energy from day one, and that's what we need, and that's what we love. So it's good vibes around here for sure.
Well, we are going to join Tom now, who has questions from our media via Zoom.
All right, our first question will be from Jason Stam at Bearcat Report.
Hey, Jeremiah, the size that y'all have this year, obviously, you had a big, like you haven't had a big, but you had Chris last year, but what is having more shot blockers, having more bigs, what does that allow you to do offensively or defensively? Like, what does that do for your team overall?
Right. I say first, it frees us up, the guards, and this is a big presence that we have even more now down low. So that's a big factor, in this league we play in. So it just adds, rim protection, just a good element, to our team for sure.
All right, our next question will be from Brian Hummer at Cincy Slangin' Podcast.
Jeremiah, during your first 2 seasons, we saw your role change dramatically. As a freshman, you were that spark off the bench, and then last season, you break out as a knockdown shooter who flashed more off the dribble game as the season went on. Where did you put your focus this offseason from a development standpoint, and who are some of the key people around you who assist you in that process?
Well, my key point is just elevate, each year, every day, get better, elevate. And, the people who's around with my teammates, obviously, and my family, they always push me day to day, every day to get better, and I push them. So a combination of both, it works out well. But, the goal every day is to get better, and that's what I did. Freshman year, leading to sophomore year, it was just all about what can I do to get better, what can I do to improve in all areas, So that's what I've been focusing on.
Our next question will come from Justin Williams at The Athletic.
Hey, JD. Being a hometown kid, you obviously understand the history of Cincinnati basketball and the culture better than most in the program. With a new coach, new players, do you feel like you have to be an ambassador in some ways for the history of the program and what it means to play for Cincinnati?
Not really, because the university speaks for itself in my eyes. You know, people that are here right now know or should know, you know, what the history background is, you know, coming into Cincinnati. So I'll say no and yes a little bit, but yeah, people should already know what Cincinnati is about in my eyes.
Appreciate the time, Jeremiah. Looking forward to watching you tip off this season here in a few short weeks.
Yes, ma'am. I can't wait. Thank you.